qualified means Uncle Sam is your partner. In this episode, I'm going to address the question, what is a qualified plan? Get ready because, it's pretty simple, but I can't believe how many Americans do not understand the difference between a qualified retirement plan or savings account and a non-qualified retirement plan, because based upon that terminology, people would say, well, I want the qualified one, right? Wrong. You'll find out why. So my name's Doug Andrew, and I've been a retirement planning specialist for more than 4.5 decades. I've helped many, many people understand the difference between qualified and non-qualified plans, and I have always chosen to put my serious cash earmarked for my future into non-qualified plans. Why? Well, why did the government come up with qualified plans? Because they want to be your partner. Uncle Sam would love to be your partner and get a piece of all of what you've been saving at the end of the day when you start to access that money. And so they dangle these carrots in front of us saying, ooh, we'll give you a tax break. You can put in pre-tax dollars. You can get a tax deduction for what you put into an IRA. So you'll have more money earning money. Sounds pretty sweet, right? And so it's tax deferred. And then when you retire, you'll have to pay tax then, but you'll likely be in a lower bracket, right? That has not been true or axiomatic for more than 25 years. And so we see a lot of articles. Time magazine had a cover story, why the 401k was a lousy idea, financial flop, a rotten repository, why it's time to retire the 401k and do something better instead. The Wall Street Journal, I think it was January of 2017, said the original champions of the 401k lament the day they ever came up with that idea, because people lose money in the market with those. They took the place of pensions and profit sharing plans, and then people get frustrated when they felt like they lost their future in 2001 to 2003 after 9/11, when 40% of their nest egg went down the drain. It took 4 years to make that back. 2008, they lost 40% again. So a lot of times people will look at a 401k, and it's not the cat's meow they thought it was. Okay, so this is a skunk. Shoo kitty, okay? The qualified plan is not the retirement dream they thought it was. So I talk about how Uncle Sam is your partner. Oftentimes I will show an illustration like this. These are IRAs and 401ks, and they make it look like this sumptuous Subway hoagie sandwich depicted here on the left. But then when you retire, it looks like this unappetizing sandwich on the right, because the government's going to come in and take some pretty healthy bites out of that sandwich in taxes. And people sometimes think, whoa, I didn't think it was going to be this bad. The only people that I've ever met that are actually in lower tax brackets when they retire are those that didn't save very much. See, most people who are savers, if they're earning $100,000 a year on the average, they're socking away enough money, okay, because they understand how money works, so that wherever they have that money, the return will generate the same amount of income or more in retirement. If you don't save very much, you'll be in a lower bracket. Is that why you want to be in a lower bracket? Because you didn't save very much money? So when we look at this, Uncle Sam is sitting here and he's going, oh, look at this, taxpayer pie. And if you haven't noticed, the government keeps having bigger and bigger appetites. They want to keep raising taxes and taking a piece. And who are they going to take the money from? The people who have the money, okay? And so when they are hard up for tax revenue, they often say, we're going to redistribute the wealth. Well, that means they're going to take money from the people who have the money and redistribute it to the people who didn't save. Now, how do you feel about that? I personally don't feel good about that. When we look at maybe climbing a mountain, there's been, oh golly, I don't know how many thousands of people scale Mount Everest, and there's been several hundred people die. But when do you think most of the people die? Going up the mountain or coming down the mountain? Yeah, coming down the mountain. See, a lot of people, when they come down the mountain of retirement, that's when they die financially. One of my favorite movies years ago, Paul Newman and Robert Redford, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. And if you've never seen that movie, you know, they're bandits, they're robbers, and pretty soon they're getting on to them here with E.H. Herman of the Union Pacific Railroad, so they go to Bolivia. And they start robbing banks down there, and pretty soon it's getting a lot of pressure, so they decide to go straight. And they hire themselves out as payroll guards for the gold mine. And the first day on the job, you know, they're going with the guy to get the payroll, and they're sitting there going, oh, I think the robbers are up there behind the rocks on the left. Oh, I think they're up there behind the bushes on the right. And their boss turns around and goes, morons. I have morons on my team. They don't rob you when you don't have the money. We are going to get the gold. Okay, they don't rob you when you don't have the money. They rob you when you have the money. and sure enough, when they came back down, that's when they got robbed and so forth. But see, that's what happens. The government robs the people who have the money. It's the people who save. So, golly, who came up with this system? It's like when people come to me with their yet-to-be taxed IRAs and 401ks, I'll often go, were you planning your retirement or Uncle Sam's? Because now you're going to pay back 8 to 12 times the taxes you saved. On 30 years on the contributions, you'll pay back 8 to 12 times the tax on the back end, okay? In fact, most school teachers pay back every dime they saved in tax on 30 years on the contributions to 401ks and 403bs, the first 2.5 to 3 years of retirement, and every 3 years thereafter, they pay back again and again and again. So what is a qualified plan? That's the question you probably typed in searching on this YouTube. Qualified with the government. Okay, Uncle Sam is your partner. IRAs, 401ks, and the like. Now, there's pros and there's cons. When we look at these, the pros, you get tax-deductible funding, okay? Tax-deferred growth, maybe possible matching. You put in $1, your employer matches you 50 cents on that dollar up to the first 6% that you're saving. So you put in $1, they give you 50 cents, so you got $1.50. People go, oh, I'm making 50% rates of return. No, you're not. You're getting whatever rate of return you're getting. You just started out with 50% more. Why do employers do that? Like golden handcuffs to keep you there. But see, they're just covering the future tax in a 33% bracket, which most retirees end up in. If you were immediately vested, you put in $1, your employer gives you 50 cents on that, and you pull out the $1.50, you owe 50 cents of that $1.50 to Uncle Sam. You netted your contribution back after tax. That's okay, but too many people are putting in way more than they're being matched. And I'm going, what are you doing that for? I would never contribute more than what you're getting matched. I would take all the overage after you get the match and I would put it into a non-qualified plan. My favorite, I call the laser fund, okay? So the cons are it's fully taxed. When you have an IRA or 401k, a qualified plan, it's fully taxed when you use it. You must use it up based upon the government's life expectancy formula. Those are called RMDs. When you're age 72, you have to start taking out the money or there's a 50% penalty on top of the tax. If you saved $1 million and at age 72, if your life expectancy is 20 years, you have to take out 1/20, 50 grand. If you don't, there's a penalty of $25,000 on top of the tax on the $50,000. The government's going to come and take 80-90% of your money if you don't get it out of there. This is the best savings bond the government ever came up with for themselves. Uncle Sam has a permanent tax lien on that. And then the remainder is potentially taxed twice upon passing to non-spousal heirs. If you leave it behind to your heirs, sometimes they will have to pay tax. And now children, when they inherit an IRA or 401k, must get it out within 10 years and pay the tax. They can't keep it for their retirement necessarily. So folks, if you're beginning to understand, Uncle Sam is your partner. So let me connect the dots on what I am communicating here. If this is disturbing you, and you can think of somebody who ought to be watching this, be sure and share Click like, subscribe to the channel, search other topics, and at the end of this episode, I'm going to show you how you can empower yourself. I'm going to gift you a free copy of my most recent best-selling book to educate you further and deeper on this topic. But when I said Uncle Sam being your partner, let's say that we go into business together, okay? And I say, hey, here's the deal. I'm going to be your partner. Now you're going to do all the work, and you're going to make this successful. And I get a third of whatever you sell this business for down the road. And I'm not going to let you sell it until after you're age 59 and a half. But you must sell it and start giving me my portion by the time you're 72, or I'm going to penalize you, 50% plus get my portion. Oh, and by the way, I mentioned you're going to do all the work, but if I deem myself more hard up, I can change my percentage from 33%, maybe up to 40, up to 50, up to 60%. Let's go into business. Shake on it. Would you go into business with a partner like that? I wouldn't. I just described an IRA or 401k to you. Uncle Sam is that kind of a partner. They call all the shots. So when I ask people, do you think future taxes will likely be lower? I get nothing but crickets. How many think they're going to be the same? Oh, a few raise their hands. But if I'm talking to an audience of 2,000 people and I say, how many think they're going to be higher? A sea of hands goes up. I go, okay. Well, if you really believe that taxes are going to be higher, and frankly, under the Biden administration, at the recording of this video, he's already said he's going to raise taxes. He's going to do away with a step-up in basis on long-term capital gains. He's going to do all these things because he's got to raise billions of dollars for his initiatives and ideas. In fact, Medicare for all, free college tuition is going to cost $100 trillion in the next 10 years. If you divide that by 10 years, that's $10 trillion a year. That's twice as much money as the IRS collects in taxes in an entire year. And they still need to operate the government with $5 trillion. Now they want to add 10 on top of that every year? Where's the money going to come from? So why do you want to postpone tax in an IRA or 401k and let it sit there and grow tax deferred to some future perceived unknown advantage, and then take out your money down the road when you're convinced you're going to be in a higher tax rate? That doesn't make sense. So you want to get the taxes over and done with sooner than later. So what you want to do is convert to something that's going to be tax-free. My favorite vehicle is called the Laser Fund, and it allows you to accumulate, access, and transfer your money tax-free. It is what savvy CPAs and tax attorneys call the rich man's Roth. See, the Laser Fund is the title of my most recent best-selling book. And I'm going to show you how you can get a free copy of this, but let me summarize it this way. See, a Roth is a step in the right direction, but I've never owned an IRA or 401k, and I never will, for the reasons I've shared in this video. I've never owned a Roth, and never will, because Roths, even though they're a step in the right direction, they still are qualified plans. They have strings attached. You can only put in a certain dollar amount or a certain percent of your income. You cannot touch the money for 5 years or till you're 59 and a half without a penalty. You can only put in this much money. If you make too much money, you don't qualify for a Roth. That's why my favorite vehicle, the Laser Fund, is called the rich man's Roth, because people who have too much money or make too much money can't own a Roth. So they choose a Laser Fund. The Laser Fund has the two benefits of a Roth. You accumulate your money tax-free and you can access it tax-free, but it has 4 additional benefits. You will learn these benefits when you study this book. If I want, I can structure it to accommodate $300,000 of deposits in a year. Do I have to do that? No. I could put in $30,000. If I only put in $30,000 and I could have put in $300,000, I have $270,000 of room I can use anytime I want in the future. If you don't use the little bit of room you have on a Roth, you lose it in a given tax year. You can't make up for it. If I put in $300,000 and 30 days later I need to access $250,000, I can do that out of the Laser Fund. There's no penalties. You can't do that in a Roth. I can use indexing, where with the Laser Fund, my money's not invested in the market. It's linked to what the market does, so I participate and earn great returns when the market goes up, but I do not lose a dime due to market volatility. And at the end of the day, when I finally pass away, right now at my age 68, every million in Laser Funds would blossom to $2.5 million and transfer tax-free. Now, if I've aroused curiosity, go to laserfund.com. Contribute a nominal amount towards the shipping and handling, and I'll pay for the book and fire it out to you. This is 300 pages of charts, graphs, and explanations, and actually 62 client stories on this side of the book. This is the right brain side. This is the left brain side. And you can begin to learn why the Laser Fund has the two benefits of a Roth and 4 additional benefits, but it's the best non-qualified plan, I think, on the planet, especially in America. And you do not want to have any money trapped in a qualified plan at retirement, as far as I'm concerned, or at least get the majority of it out and repositioned into something that is non-qualified.